I was rummaging through my girlfriend's gym bag, half focused, trying to find my damn phone charger before I had to head out to the job site. She always tossed everything into that bag: water bottles, socks, protein bars, random receipts. But this time something caught my eye. A thick blue binder. The kind you get from an office supply store. It was sitting at the bottom of the bag, slightly bent, with a white label on the spine. Our landscaping company. I pulled it out without thinking much of it. Figured it might be some client notes or random paperwork we'd been meaning to sort. But when I flipped it open, my stomach tightened. Inside were legal documents, official-looking, crisp, the kind you'd see in a lawyer's office. And they had my name on them. My heart skipped a beat. This was bad. Really bad. A business exit plan all laid out. But here's the kicker. I hadn't signed a single thing. Numbers that didn't add up. A section about transferring my shares. Terms for a buyout completely fake. I didn't recognize half the companies listed. It was all a ruse. Like she was planning to push me out, make me disappear without me even knowing. I snapped pictures of every page, making sure I had everything. Then I stuffed the binder back into the bag and grabbed my charger like nothing had happened. She came downstairs a few minutes later, dressed in her usual spin class gear, all smiles. "Did you find it?" she asked, voice light, like she didn't have a care in the world. I nodded, my heart still pounding. "Yeah, found it. Thanks." I played it cool. But inside, everything had changed. After she left for her spin class, I sat down on the couch and went through the photos again. My hands shaking a little now. It was like I could feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. I zoomed in on the documents, dissecting every page, every line. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. The valuation reports? All lowballed, like way too low. The numbers weren't even close to what we were pulling in. She was trying to paint me as a passive partner, someone who didn't deserve a stake in the business. I thought back to all her weird complaints lately, how I didn't take initiative, how I let her run everything. All those nights she'd stayed late at spin class or networking dinners with clients, and those weekend conferences she'd told me about, always just the right excuse to be out of the house. It was starting to add up now. She'd been setting the stage for this. I closed the binder and just stared at it for a moment, processing everything. Anger started to creep in, but I swallowed it down. I couldn't afford to let emotions control this. I needed to think, to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. I grabbed my phone and dialed my cousin. He'd gone through something similar. His ex tried to pull a fast one in their business too. He'd been through the grinder and I needed his advice. "Yeah," he answered, his voice still groggy from what I assumed was another night of bad sleep. "Hey, I need a favor," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found something. My girlfriend. She's been planning to kick me out of our business." There was a long pause on the other end of the line before he spoke again. "Shit, man. Are you serious?" "Dead serious. I need a lawyer. Can you help me out?" He didn't hesitate. "Yeah, I got someone. I'll send you the number. Just make sure you get all the evidence you can. Don't let her know you're on to her." I hung up, already feeling like the walls were closing in. The next morning, I met with the lawyer. He was sharp, no nonsense, with a way of making everything feel like a big deal without saying much. I laid out the documents I'd found, everything from the fake exit plan to the lowballed valuation reports. He didn't even flinch when he looked over them. "Okay, this is bad," he said, scanning through the pages. "These numbers? They're designed to make it look like you're not invested. But it's all smoke and mirrors. She's trying to set you up to lose everything." He paused, looking up at me. "This is some serious shit, man. She's playing dirty. But you've got a shot if we act fast." The cold realization hit me hard. She wasn't just trying to cut me out. She was setting me up to lose it all. And I was this close to letting it happen. I had to fight. Couldn't let her get away with it. The lawyer outlined the plan. Gather more evidence, keep quiet, and wait for her to make her next move. She'd slip up, he said. They always did. I could already feel the weight of everything starting to shift. This wasn't just about a business anymore. It was about what I was willing to let someone take from me. And I wasn't going down without a fight. The lawyer's advice echoed in my head. Don't react. Don't confront her. Keep everything normal. It sounded easy enough, but I wasn't feeling normal. I couldn't act like I hadn't just discovered she was planning to destroy everything we'd built together. So I did the only thing I could: dig. Every spare minute I had, I went through everything I could find. Contracts, receipts, old emails, bank statements, any communication related to the business. I turned over every rock, looking for something that would tie her to this mess. It didn't take long to find more signs of what she'd been doing. I was going through a stack of old invoices when I came across a bank statement, one I hadn't seen before. It was linked to a separate account under a name I didn't recognize. She'd been funneling company expenses into it. The account had a bunch of regular payments, all marked as business expenses. I sat there staring at it, my stomach sinking. It wasn't just the account. I started seeing the pattern. Things weren't adding up. I pulled open the company's books next. There it was, listed as a consulting fee. Except the fee wasn't going to a consultant. It was going straight into her personal account. I stared at the transaction logs, the amounts, the dates. The numbers were small, but they added up over time, like drops of water filling a bucket. Then a printed invoice caught my eye. It wasn't something I'd seen before, at least not in this form. The company it came from didn't sound familiar. I skimmed it quickly, feeling a knot tighten in my chest. This was the kind of thing a lawyer would draft. It was a legal services invoice. And the name on the envelope? It was addressed only to her. My blood ran cold. I thought back to the day I'd found the binder in her gym bag. This had all been part of her plan. A quiet, under-the-radar way to take control of the company. She'd been setting up a new LLC and moving assets while keeping me in the dark. I took everything I had, the bank statements, the invoices, the mysterious envelope, the consulting fees, and sent them to the lawyer. I sat on my couch, feeling like the walls were closing in. We had a strategy now, but it felt like everything I knew about her was slipping away. How had I missed this? How had she gotten this far without me seeing it? The lawyer called me back the next day. He was quick, efficient. All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll build a counter-strategy. We're not just stopping her, we're going to expose everything. We'll start with the money, the fake consulting fees, and that LLC she's setting up. Once we hit her with that, she'll know we're serious. My chest tightened as I listened. I wanted to rush in and confront her, demand answers, but the lawyer's words held me back. Patience was key, and I wasn't sure I had the patience for this, but I couldn't screw it up now. This wasn't just about stopping her. It was about making sure she couldn't do this to anyone else again. I hung up, feeling the weight of it all. There was no going back now. The fight had already begun, and I wasn't backing down. When I got home that night, she was already there, like nothing had changed. It was like I wasn't sitting on a bombshell that could level everything we'd built. She was in the kitchen, chopping veggies for dinner, humming along to some pop song. Everything looked normal. She looked normal. "Hey," she greeted me, her voice light. "How was your day? You make any progress with the new client?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, it went well. Some good leads coming in. Got a couple of things lined up for next week." She looked pleased. "See? I knew you'd step up. Always knew you had it in you," she said, flipping the pan on the stove, eyes still on the food. "You're really showing some initiative. I love seeing that." I didn't respond right away, just focused on the hum of the kitchen around me, the sizzling of the pan, the quiet rhythm of her cooking. Every piece of it felt like a performance, a script we'd been rehearsing for months. The more she acted like nothing was wrong, the more my skin crawled. She set the table and looked at me with that familiar smile. "Oh, and I got us an invite to a networking dinner this weekend. Some of the big players in town. It'll be great for the company, and I think it'll be good for us, just to keep things moving forward." I knew what she was doing, keeping up appearances. She was still trying to act like we were a team, like everything was fine, while secretly setting the stage to cut me out. I played along, even though every word felt like sandpaper against my nerves. "That sounds great," I said, taking a bite of the food she'd just served. It wasn't bad, she was a good cook. But I didn't really taste it. I've been meaning to get out more, meet new people. She smiled, then paused as if she was thinking something over. You know, I've been thinking about some big changes coming soon, she said, looking at me with a hint of excitement in her eyes. Things are really going to take off. It's going to be an exciting year. My stomach nodded. I'd seen this before. The way she tried to plant little seeds, make the future sound shiny and bright. She wasn't talking about some vague, big changes for the business. She was talking about her future. And me? I wasn't in it. Yeah, me too, I replied, forcing the words out. I set my fork down, meeting her gaze. Big things coming. She beamed. I smiled back, though I couldn't have felt more distant. It wasn't just the tension of the past few days. It was the realization that we were living in two completely different worlds now. She was already moving ahead, and I was just trying to hold on. After dinner, I retreated to my office, needing a moment of peace. The lawyer had sent me the preliminary documents, proof of her manipulation with the company ownership percentages. It was worse than I'd expected. The paperwork she drafted had been deliberately misleading, trying to paint me as less involved than I was, like she had a right to take over everything without me. I stared at the documents, the reality of it hitting me again. She hadn't just been lying to me. She'd been preparing for this moment for months, weaving a story where I was a bystander in the business we'd built together. I ran my fingers through my hair and sighed. Everything I'd thought I knew about our relationship, about the future, was slipping away. But there was no going back now. I had to see this through. Big things coming? I muttered to myself, repeating her words. But this time, I wasn't talking about what she wanted. I was talking about what I was about to do. That night, after I'd told myself to just let it go for the evening, I found myself logging into our shared accounting software from an old laptop. She didn't realize it was still linked to the system. I guess she thought I didn't have access anymore. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I had to check. I couldn't just let it sit there, waiting for the next big blow to drop. The login screen popped up, and I hesitated for a second. But the urge to know was stronger. I punched in the password, which I still remembered, and clicked through to the company dashboard. The files looked like the usual ones, full of spreadsheets and invoices. But then I saw something different, something that made my chest tighten. It wasn't one of our regular project forecasts. No, this was an entire new set of documents, branded under a new company name I didn't recognize. The logo wasn't even one we'd discussed. I opened the first spreadsheet. More lowballed numbers, more fake valuations. But then, it hit me. The clients listed on these spreadsheets, they were ours, our best ones. I couldn't breathe for a second. She was building a new company with our clients, using the same services, just under a new name, and I wasn't anywhere in the picture. The timelines were too precise to be a coincidence. They matched the exact dates when she'd been trying to take some pressure off my plate by giving me less and less to do. She'd slowly stripped me out of the day-to-day, all while she was setting up her own operation behind my back. I scrolled through a few more files, each one more damning than the last. Then I found two contracts, both signed under the new LLC's name, and both with clients I had worked with for years. I felt the heat rise in my face as I realized that she'd already transferred those clients to her new business. It hit me like a punch to the gut. She'd been planning this for months, probably longer. And now I had proof. I wasn't just being pushed out of the company. I was being erased. Every step of the way, she'd been quietly taking what was mine and making sure I wouldn't even see it coming. I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed my phone and sent everything I found to the lawyer. I had to act. I needed to act. He called me back a few minutes later. "This is exactly what I was worried about," he said, sounding both calm and furious at the same time. "This is clear evidence of business theft and misrepresentation. She's been siphoning clients and assets away from the company." I sat there, staring at the screen, the weight of it all sinking in. I wasn't just dealing with someone who had an affair with the business. I was dealing with someone who'd plotted, who'd been 2 steps ahead of me the whole time. The lawyer continued, "We've got solid grounds for legal action now. We'll start with the misrepresentation of the company's ownership and the theft of the client contracts. We'll hit her with everything. Once we're ready, There's no turning back. I could hear the steel in his voice. This wasn't just about stopping her anymore. This was about making sure she couldn't get away with it. But for now, I had to keep playing along, keep acting like I hadn't seen a thing. I closed the laptop slowly, my mind racing with the new information. Everything I thought I knew was different now. I wasn't just going to lose the business. I was going to make sure she couldn't take anyone else down with her. Big things coming? I muttered to myself, staring at the dark screen in front of me. It wasn't just her future that was on the line anymore. It was mine too. But unlike her, I wasn't going to just roll over. I was coming for everything. I sat in the kitchen the next night, eyes on my phone, waiting for her to make her move. The lawyer and I had already prepared a cease and desist notice for her new company, but we agreed it was best to hold off. We needed her to come to me first. People who think they're winning get careless. She wouldn't be able to keep up the charade forever. Then, as if on cue, she came to me with that look. She'd been acting distant lately, but tonight, she was focused, like she'd been waiting for the right moment. "We need to talk," she said, voice soft but firm. It wasn't a request, more like an order. I set my phone down and followed her to the living room, where the mood felt like it always had before all of this started. She sat across from me, a glass of wine in hand, calm like nothing had changed. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice steady, but I could tell there was an edge to it, "about your role in the business." She paused, looking me dead in the eye. "You know, I've been carrying a lot of the weight lately, and honestly, you've been kinda absent. I need someone who's going to take more initiative, who's going to lead." I held my breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I had to keep the act going, had to pretend I was still the guy she thought I was. Still the guy who didn't know about the LLC, the stolen clients, the financial manipulations. "I've been thinking about that too," I said, my voice quieter than usual, making sure to play it off like I was reflecting on what she said. "I've been thinking about our future and where we go from here." I met her gaze steady. She couldn't see it, but I was already a step ahead. She leaned forward, almost like she was testing me. "I think it's time to restructure things. I've been doing a lot of research, and it seems like the company would be better off if we bought you out. You've always said you wanted to focus on other things, right?" The words hung in the air, sharp. She wasn't just suggesting a buyout. She was implying that I didn't even care about the business anymore, that I wasn't a real partner. It took everything I had not to snap. Instead, I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I've thought about it, but I think we should both think about it some more. Maybe get some legal guidance before we make any decisions." I let the words sink in. I didn't need to rush into anything. Her smile flickered, but she quickly masked it with another sip of wine. Of course, we'll get legal advice." She said it like she was humoring me, but I knew she was starting to feel the pressure. She wanted me to believe she was in control, but the truth was, I was the one holding the cards now. I kept my tone even, like we were still talking about an ordinary business decision. "We should make sure everything's fair, you know? Just in case." Her eyes flashed, just for a second, but she quickly recovered, sitting back in the chair and crossing her legs. "Right? Fair." She tried to sound casual, but there was a tightness around her mouth that I didn't miss. She wasn't used to this, me not immediately agreeing with her. She wasn't used to me standing my ground. "Well," I said, standing up, "we'll think about it and figure things out soon. I'm sure we'll get everything sorted." She didn't say anything else, just nodded and finished her wine. But there was something in her eyes. The mask was slipping. She knew I was on to her now. As I walked back to the kitchen, my phone buzzed. My lawyer had sent a quick message. "She's testing the waters. Stay calm." She's scared now. I stared at the screen for a moment, letting the words sink in. She wasn't winning. She was cornered. And I was ready. It wasn't long before she set the trap. I had expected it, but the way she did it still stung. She walked into the living room that afternoon with a packet of official-looking documents in her hands. She held them out, her eyes steady, like she had been practicing her pitch. "I've put together a formal offer," she said, trying to sound calm, like we were just two business partners discussing the next steps. I think this is the best way forward for both of us. I took the packet from her, pretending to inspect it as if I hadn't already seen it all. I flipped through the pages slowly, deliberately. Her words followed me, like she was trying to sell me a lie. This is a generous offer, she continued. Given your limited contributions to the company over the years, I think it's fair. You should take it. Her voice was so smooth, too practiced. It didn't sound like the woman I'd built a business with. It sounded like a businesswoman trying to buy her way out of a problem. It took everything I had to keep my hands steady as I flipped through the documents, letting her believe I was genuinely considering it. When I was done flipping through the last page, I closed the packet and looked up at her, letting the silence stretch for a beat too long. Her eyes were still locked on me, expectantly. She was waiting for me to react, waiting for me to cave. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my own stack of papers, the ones I had been collecting for weeks. Evidence of everything she had tried to hide. Her eyes flicked down to the stack, and the tension in the room shifted. Actually, I said, my voice as calm as I could manage. I've been thinking a lot too, and I've been doing some digging. I laid the documents down on the table between us, each one carefully placed, each piece of evidence slowly stacking up. I started with the most important ones. The fake consulting fees, the bank statements showing transfers to her personal account, the LLC registration. I watched her face as she took in the papers one by one, her expression flickering between disbelief and fear. Her jaw tightened, and she opened her mouth to say something, but no words came. I leaned back in my chair, watching her struggle to find the words. I've known for weeks, I said, my voice a little harder now. I've already met with my lawyer. I've seen everything. Everything you've been doing behind my back. Her eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. She opened her mouth again, like she was going to deny it, but nothing came out. She looked at the papers in front of her, then at me like she was seeing a completely different person. I don't know what you think you've seen, she stammered, trying to recover. But this isn't what it looks like. You don't understand. I cut her off, keeping my voice steady but firm. I understand perfectly. The fake invoices, the misappropriated funds, the clients you've moved over to your new company. It's all here. All of it. You thought I wouldn't catch on. Her face turned pale. She glanced at the documents, her fingers twitching as if she might reach for them. But she didn't. She couldn't. The evidence was undeniable. No, she said finally, her voice weaker now. You don't get it. I was just trying to plan ahead. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You didn't just plan ahead. You set me up. You've been stealing from the company, lying to me, erasing me from everything. And now you want me to believe it was for the good of the business. She dropped her head, and for a moment, I thought maybe there was some remorse in her. But I couldn't believe that anymore. Not after everything. You don't understand, she repeated. But it was less convincing now. I still care about you. I didn't want this to happen. I was just trying to. To what? I snapped, my patience running out. To get rid of me and take over? To leave me with nothing while you built a new empire under my nose? You don't care about me. You care about control. You've always cared about control. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. Not after everything she'd done. I'm not going to let this go, I told her, my voice cold. I've already filed with my lawyer. You're not getting away with it. This is over. I stood up, staring down at the pile of documents. I couldn't look at her anymore. She had no idea how far I'd already gone, how deep I'd dug. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this. She didn't say anything else. She just sat there, her hands shaking slightly, her face flushed with anger and defeat. But I wasn't looking for apologies anymore. This was no longer about us. It was about making sure she faced the consequences for what she'd done. You've been caught, I said one last time, the words hanging between us like a weight. And I'm done playing along. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. The truth was clear now. She sat there, her hands trembling, her face pale but flushed with embarrassment. She was trying to hold it together, but the walls were closing in on her. She leaned forward, looking at me like I was the one who didn't get it. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said, her voice cracking, but still laced with that defensive edge. "I was just planning ahead, in case things didn't work out. I thought it was better to be prepared, you know? I thought it would be easier for both of us if—" "Planning ahead?" I interrupted, my voice low and hard. "You don't secretly steal clients, funnel money, and hide it in another company to plan ahead. That's called fraud, and it's a hell of a lot more than a backup plan." She flinched, her eyes dropping to the table as if she couldn't look at me anymore. But she still wasn't giving up. She was trying to hold on to some shred of control, even if it meant lying to herself. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, her voice barely audible now. "I never wanted to hurt you. I still care about you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I kept my face hard, unaffected. "No," I said, shaking my head slowly. "You don't care about me. You care about control. You always have. You've spent months, probably longer, pulling the strings behind my back, and now you want to make it look like it's all just a misunderstanding." I leaned in, meeting her eyes, not backing down. "You're not fooling me anymore." Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, I thought I might see some real regret, but then it hit me. There was no going back. The damage was done. Whatever she felt now, it wasn't enough to undo everything she had planned. She didn't say anything more. I didn't want her to. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, I called my lawyer and gave him the go-ahead to file our official response. The shared accounts were frozen, and legal mediation was initiated. It felt like the right step, like the world was finally starting to make sense again. The business I'd poured everything into wasn't going to be stolen from me without a fight. By the time I got home later that day, her lawyer had already reached out. They were trying to negotiate, calling everything a misunderstanding. A classic move. Play it down, make it look like a mistake that just needs to be cleaned up. I didn't need to read the email to know exactly what they were doing. They were hoping I'd back down, hoping they could weasel their way out of this. I wasn't about to let that happen. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, who responded with a short, sharp message. "Don't engage. They're stalling." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Everything was finally moving forward, but it still felt unreal. I wasn't just fighting for the company anymore. I was fighting for my dignity, for everything she tried to take without a second thought. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but I wasn't about to lose. Not like this. Not quietly. A few days later, she asked to talk again. Her voice was tentative when she called, like she was trying to sound normal, like she hadn't just spent months trying to destroy everything we'd built. She said she wanted to work through things, suggested couples therapy. I stared at the phone for a minute, her name glowing on the screen. I could feel my heart rate picking up, but not for the reasons she thought. She wasn't asking to fix the mess she made in the business. She was asking to fix us, like everything was still salvageable, like we could just go back to how things were before any of this happened. When I called her back, I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Why now?" I asked. "After everything? Why try to work through things when you've already been exposed?" There was a pause on the other end, then a soft sigh. She started, her voice shaking a little. "I realized what I stood to lose. I didn't want to ruin everything. The business. I'm sorry. I made a huge mistake. But we can fix this. We can still." I cut her off before she could finish. "No, we can't. Not after everything you've done. You don't just rebuild trust after months of lying, scheming, and stealing." My voice was steady, but there was a sharp edge to it, one I couldn't hide anymore. "You've shown me exactly who you are, and it's too late to fix that." She didn't respond right away. I could hear her breathing, a soft, steady rhythm. But there was no apology in her silence. Just something else, a realization, maybe, that the control she'd thought she had was slipping through her fingers. "I'm sorry," she said after a long pause. This time it sounded different, more real. but it still didn't change anything. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I still care about you. I almost laughed. The words felt hollow now. She could apologize until her voice cracked, but I wasn't going to fall for it. I wasn't the same person who had been in that partnership with her. I don't think you ever cared about me. Not like you said you did. You cared about the business and the control and everything you could take for yourself. But not me. Not us. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to finish. It's over. There was a long silence after that. I could hear her moving around in the background, maybe trying to gather her thoughts, but I wasn't interested in hearing more excuses. Not anymore. Finally, she spoke again, quieter now. So what now? What do we do? I took a deep breath and set my phone down for a second. When I picked it back up, I was clear. We've agreed on new terms. I'll retain full control of the business. You'll walk away quietly. No more games. No more lies. Her breath hitched, but she didn't argue. The truth was, there was nothing left to fight for. She had already crossed the line, and now it was my turn to call the shots. I'll pack my things, she said, her voice softer now, not like she was ready to fight anymore. I could hear the exhaustion in it. It was over for her, too. That weekend, she packed up her things. There were no big confrontations, no shouting matches. It was quiet, almost too quiet, like we were both just waiting for it to be done. She took what was hers and left. And when she was gone, the silence in the house felt heavier than I expected. But there was no regret in me. Not anymore. She'd made her choice, and now I was making mine. The mediation wrapped everything up. The papers were signed, the agreements set in stone. I kept the business, the name, the client base, everything she tried to claim as hers. She was barred from using anything related to the company's branding or contacting our old clients. It was final. A few of my friends were shocked when it all went down. They'd seen the surface, the happy couple, the joint business, the perfect partnership. To them, it probably seemed like it came out of nowhere. I didn't bother explaining. What was the point? They wouldn't understand the real story. I moved on quickly. I hired a new project manager and threw myself into rebuilding what she tried to gut. The new guy was sharp, smart, organized, and hungry to prove himself. He'd been a godsend. We started picking up the pieces, securing new contracts, and pushing forward with the work that had once been ours. Sometimes, when I'd sit in my office late at night, looking at the numbers, I'd think about how close she came to pulling it off. How she thought she could just wipe me out, erase everything I'd built. It still stung even months later. But then I'd remember the moment I reached into her gym bag. The binder, the documents, the truth staring me in the face. She thought I was blind. She thought I wouldn't see what she'd been doing. Turns out I just hadn't been looking. Not until I needed to. Now everything was clear. No more illusions. Just facts. And I wasn't going to pretend it didn't hurt. It did. But I refused to lose quietly. Not to her. Not to anyone.